Ah, come on, you piece of junk. Every day it's the same damn thing.
People. Every single day, I find myself being let down more and more by people. Unreliable, fake people. I'll be honest with you, I don't get out of bed every day eager to encounter humanity, but I can't check out just yet. I have things to do. In the meantime, I rely on two things to get me through, things that don't let me down: the iron and video games. Long before I touched a weight, I had video games. And if I'm sick, injured, or in a particularly bad hole, I have a list of games that I could turn on in a pinch that always help to keep my little emotional rowboat floating downstream. And then, inevitably, I always seem to kinda come out of it. In no particular order, here's a list of games that never fail to remind me that life is worth living, even when it doesn't always feel like it. Because we couldn't afford a gaming PC in 1998, games like Half-Life always had a ton of mystique to them. I remember seeing the big boxes at electronic stores and wishing I could play the game, just to find out what all the crazy praise was about. I used to daydream about what I thought Half-Life was like, simply based on the screenshots printed on the back of the box. I used to draw the little lambda symbol in my notebooks despite having no idea what it even meant. My younger sibling had a friend their age living across the hall from us in the apartment complex we lived in. My sibling was allowed to go over, but being big brother, it was my job to go with and keep an eye out. Now, this could have been a big drag, but the kid's dad, a guy named Fred, had a badass PC with a gigantic CRT monitor, and he was always playing Half-Life. Specifically, I remember him being on Half-Life Deathmatch all the time. He never let me try, which I totally understood, but really, I just love watching him play. At the time, GoldenEye 007 on the N64 was my personal Jesus. I put hundreds of hours into that damn game. I can't describe just how much I love it, but seeing an FPS running on cutting-edge hardware was different. The frame rate was leagues beyond the 15 to 20 FPS of GoldenEye. The movement was so smooth, the images were so crisp, I was completely transfixed. I also remember hearing the adult language coming out of his speakers, and oh boy. Now, both of my parents cursed like sailors, and I listened to music with curses all the time, so it wasn't shocking per se, it just felt different. Like I was sitting at the kids' table watching the grown-ups play cards and smoke cigars, only to then be allowed to sit quietly at that adult table for the first time. Fred and I had sort of an unspoken agreement, like a gentleman's agreement, that I wouldn't tell my dad all the stuff I was hearing, sort of like when my buddy's mom let us watch South Park when I stayed the night. It's a really good memory, but I still wanted to see the single-player campaign. Well, in 2004, I finally got a PlayStation 2. While at Blockbuster one day, I came across a used copy of the PS2 port of Half-Life. $14.99, I'll never forget it. I flipped out. I could finally play it. The only problem was, I was short $15, so I hatched a plan. Begging. Yeah! I went to school the next day and sheepishly asked each friend to spot me 50 cents or $1 for lunch. As you might have guessed, I didn't eat that day. I didn't care. I left that day with enough money to buy Half-Life, and I was over the moon. I eagerly ran home and over to Blockbuster. I booted the game up and was immediately obsessed. Sure, when you're on your 50th playthrough, the opening segment can be really slow going, but on my first playthrough, I adored the feeling of approaching Black Mesa on the tram. This vast, secretive research facility with untold mystery tucked inside, and you weren't playing as a gruff, tough big man, but an incredibly intelligent geek, a theoretical physicist. I loved it, man. I fucking loved it. And once the resonance cascade kicks off, the game begins in earnest, and I loved it even more. Some people have lamented the basic FPS gameplay over the years, which is their right to do, and I'm not a huge fan of hit scan enemies or precarious platforming myself, but for what it's worth, I am a huge fan of the gameplay in Half-Life. I love the weapons, I love the grenades, I love the gluon gun and the Tau cannon, and I get sincere joy out of exploring the winding halls of Black Mesa, solving environmental puzzles and battling aliens. To this day, I come back to Half-Life if I'm feeling blue, because I simply love the world that Valve created. That sense of awe and mystery stands to this day, and even though I know all the scripted beats by heart at this point, I still get that rush of curiosity and, frankly, happiness every time I pick up that crowbar and start running.
That's one less horror in the world.
Debatably the greatest video game of all time. Now, it's not my personal favorite, and I know contrarians exist to contraire, but there's a very good reason why Resident Evil 4 has been ported to nearly every electronic device since 2005, despite the fact that it was originally only ever supposed to release on the GameCube. Lol. A theme that you'll notice across this entire video is how a game impacted me the first time I played it, and I'll never forget how it felt when my brother and I tried RE4 back in 2005. The over-the-shoulder camera had been done before in games like Winback, and targeting individual limbs on an enemy goes as far back as at least GoldenEye in 1997, but Resident Evil 4 took features like these and made them 10 times better than anything before it. Watching an enemy grab their knee in pain while looking up and wailing at you after you've shot them, sprinting by Dr. Salvador and hearing his terrifying scream as he narrowly misses you with his big rusty chainsaw, immolating 4 Ganados at once with an incendiary grenade, it was all so good. And this is barely scratching the surface of the gameplay. Don't get me started on the weapon customization, inventory management, the merchant, Krauser, or the incredible boss battles. I simply don't have the time here. But aside from all of that, Resident Evil 4 had, and still has, incredible vibes. Taking the boat out on the lake at night and seeing the merchant's purple flame off in the distance is pure mood. Watching this rusty sunlight beam through small house windows, highlighting the dusty air, and looking around at the remnants of what was once a normal village before the Las Plagas was introduced. I want to sit down at these tables, do some simple farm work, you know? And sometimes I would almost host the Parasite to get away from the world. Thankfully, I have this game instead. Hey, real quick, if you like this video, could you push the like button? It helps get the video out a little bit, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Welcome to Dolphin Park. Warm-up time. Follow that dolphin.
We experienced a massive jump in visual fidelity from the PlayStation 1 to the PlayStation 2, but the leap from the mostly two-dimensional titles on the Super Nintendo to fully fledged 3D games on the Nintendo 64 was absolutely mind-blowing. Wave Race 64 in particular was on another level. The game simply felt big time. A daycare center I went to as a kid would occasionally rent an N64 for like a day or two, and I'll never forget the day they rented out Wave Race. As the day wore on and parents began picking up their kids, several of them stopped to watch us play for a short while. As funny as it is to think about now, I distinctly remember one of the dads saying that he thought he was watching an ESPN broadcast when he first walked in. It looked that good. It's the whole package, you know, the dynamic water physics, unmatched at the time and still impressive to this day, the lens flare, the sports broadcast feel of it all. The courses are distinct and gorgeous. Some races are bright and sunny, some are bathed in a golden orange setting sun, and some of the nighttime races felt, I don't know, like underground and dangerous, you know? The female announcer on the menu sounds so cool, calmly projecting out over a PA system as if she was greeting spectators at the track. Then we have the zany, ultra-excited announcer that calls each race with iconic lines. The soundtrack is perfect. Bright, catchy, life-affirming music that complements and enhances the vibe of the game so well. And the water physics weren't simply pretty, they directly influence the moment-to-moment gameplay, adding a little bit of RNG that makes each race feel unique. Having just played this to record footage and jot a few thoughts down, I can confirm that Wave Race is still a fantastic time gameplay-wise. It's just pure fun. And I mean, if that's not ultimately the most important thing in a video game, I don't know.
You're the champion! Congratulations!
Look, I know exactly what you're thinking. How does a game that revolves around a man trapped in his own private hell, intersecting with other damaged souls experiencing their own personal hell, help with depression? Well, the answer is in the question, because as bad as my mental health can get at times, at least I'm not being chased down by the physical manifestation of my own guilt-ridden dissociation after committing a bit of a whoopsie. Okay, so it's not just that. It's a rather bleak reminder that things could be much worse, but honestly, I just love playing this game. In this regard, multiple Silent Hill games could be right here on this list, and overall, I'd say that the first Silent Hill is probably my personal favorite, but 2 is the one I've come back to the most over the years. We talked about the jump from PS1 to PS2, and this is the game that I think of when I remember what a night and day difference this was, and I was infatuated with exploring a more fully realized version of the town thanks to the upgrades in hardware. And this is something that I champion when I talk about my love for the remake of Silent Hill 2, because that idea of exploring Silent Hill was expanded upon, with shops that you could now enter and scour completely. It was a dream come true for an old head like myself, but the original version will always hit me just right. The graphics scream PS2 in the absolute best way. The soundtrack by Akira Yamaoka is an iconic blend of samples and original arrangements, and the story is so powerful that basically every Silent Hill game that came after it basically just copied the formula. There's a reason that I made a 3-hour video on this thing. I didn't do it to be clever or to win the approval of the masses. I did it for The Rock.
I did it for The Rock.
I mean, I did it because I love Silent Hill 2. Anyway, prepare for emotional whiplash.
Yeah! Woohoo! Waha! Yahoo!
I tried to type out synonyms to describe Super Mario 64 in one word, but I have to go with my gut. It's corny, but is this your video or mine? This game is whimsical. It instills whimsy. In the truest sense of the word, it really actually does. Super Mario 64 looks and sounds how happiness feels. Unlike Half-Life, I did play Super Mario 64 when it was new, and I'm certain that this is the one that made me love video games permanently. This game had no right being as good as it was. The change from Super Mario World, already one of the greatest games of all time, to the fully three-dimensional Mushroom Kingdom was incredible in ways that I struggled to put into words. You have to remember, this really was brand new. Yes, there was Jumping Flash on the PS1 a year prior, and that game really is an underrated classic, but for most of us, Super Mario 64 was the big introduction to fully 3D gaming on a home console, and to take such an iconic two-dimensional series with such well-established characters and gameplay tropes and go full steam ahead into relatively uncharted territory while being the brand ambassador for Nintendo's new console was a move that took serious confidence. And it paid off in a big way. Not only did we all love this game to pieces, but it almost single-handedly ushered in the big wave of 3D games going forward, including the seminal Ocarina of Time 2 years later. The castle hub world is a stroke of genius, and the sense of freedom and exploration was truly unmatched at the time. No timers counting down, no quest markers or characters giving you orders to go there and do this every second. Just, hey, do you want to go climb that tree? Go right ahead. Do you want to hang around and do tricks just for fun? No problem. I simply can't emphasize this enough. There was nothing like it in 1996. Anyway, Super Mario 64 is truly a break glass in case of rainy day kind of game. One of the all-time best ever. I would even say whimsical. I put maybe 110 hours into Fallout 4. It was pretty good. I played New Vegas the day it came out, and I still have my special edition to this day. It's one of my favorite games ever. And I know well of the hardcore, and I mean hardcore fans of the original 2 Fallout games. I know a lot of them despise Fallout 3. And while I respect their dedication to the originals, I've rarely ever played a game that I've loved more than Fallout 3. I put around 600 hours into Oblivion. I absolutely adore The Elder Scrolls 4. But what nudges Fallout 3 above Oblivion for the spot on this list is the post-apocalyptic theme. I'll never forget it. The first place I ran into was Springvale Elementary School. Walking the hallways, seeing the remnants of civilization over 200 years prior to the nukes falling was surreal. Desks, chalkboards, decorations, and, well, a group of small skeletons in a cage surrounded by child-sized bloody handprints. Yeah, that's rough, but it sold the darkness and severity of civilization centuries after collapsing. It's grim and it's scary, but it started a lifetime of curiosity I have towards extinct societies, empires, and periods of time in general. It ignited this interest I have in post-apocalyptic fiction, but I became infatuated with the Mayans, Egyptians, and even more slightly outlandish things like the lost city of Atlantis. I love looking at images of the Titanic, El Mirador, and Pompeii. Even though the images are tragic, I can never get enough of peering into life during moments when places like this were in the heat of prosperity through the lens of their decaying remains, and that curiosity all started with Fallout 3. Again, I love Oblivion, but I have to admit that a lot of the game starts to feel samey after extended periods, especially the caves. Again, I put 600 something hours into that samey because it was great, but Fallout 3 offered a much greater variety in environmental storytelling. Nearly every building has its own little story weaved throughout, often discoverable through logs and computer terminals, finding little clues lying around and so forth. Yeah, you could argue that the game is a constant blend of the pea soup filter and rubble, and that's fair. But I feel like this does a disservice to the rich and detailed Capital Wasteland. It's not about the graphics though, It's that insane sense of wonder. This vast, chaotic world out there just waiting for you to pore over meticulously. I've gotten the Fallout 3 Platinum Trophy on 2 different PlayStation accounts. Yes, really. And I put about 100 hours into the game on the Xbox 360 with a friend of mine. Suffice it to say, I've played a bit of this game, but as I've started this playthrough on Steam to record footage for this video, I gotta be honest, man, the hooks started to sink in again. I wanted to fall right back into the Capital Wasteland and indulge in the adventure just one more time. Who knows, maybe someday I will. When I think back on how Pilotwings 64 made me feel as a little kid, I don't really think of words so much as I do images. I remember waking up at my grandmother's home one morning. It was autumn. I had left the window open a slight bit the night before, and when I woke up, it smelled like falling leaves and light rain on asphalt. She had these thick white curtains, kinda cream colored, and the sun was gently bleeding through the threads. I remember that feeling of pure joy. No conditions, no concerns, just happy. And I couldn't explain why, it was just a feeling. Trying to recreate that would be like capturing mist with your bare hands. As I've gone forward in life, and even to this very day as I'm recording this, I try to remember that feeling if I get down in the dumps. And that is exactly what playing Pilotwings 64 was like the first time I played it. No worries, carefree. The footage you're watching here is the first time I've played this game in almost 30 years. So much has changed during that time. But playing Pilotwings still felt good. Recently on one of my streams, a viewer of mine asked me what my favorite Splinter Cell game is. I couldn't quite put it together on the spot, but as I've thought about it over the past couple of weeks, it's absolutely the first game. Chaos Theory is the best game in the series, without a doubt, but the one that makes me the happiest is the first. It was the very first game I ever reviewed for my channel, and then recently I went and made another 45-minute updated Redux review. What can I say? I love it. The feeling of being a signal intelligence ninja, armed to the teeth but doing everything in your power to slip through each environment without a trace. Like a Splinter? Anyway, I've ranted about it before, but I get such a rush out of patiently slipping through dark, moody offices, through streets patrolled by cops and mercs, or the dingy slaughterhouse. I'm a massive fan of Metal Gear Solid, stay tuned, and I would say that overall, I love Metal Gear Solid more than any other stealth game series, but I will freely admit that Splinter Cell did a few things better, and it cemented my love for stealth gaming forever. When I need to tap into my introvert side, without the bombastic madness of Metal Gear Solid, I always turn to Splinter Cell. Watch my recent review for further elaboration. In the meantime, get ready to shred. We could debate from here until the next Ice Age about which pro skater game is the best. It's Thug 1, but anyway, the point is, I absolutely love the Tony Hawk series. I even think that Proving Ground is an underrated classic. That's right. But I go way back, having started with the first game's original Pizza Hut demo. Imagine getting demos for eating some pizza. Yeah, 1999 was the pinnacle of human existence, and you can't change my mind. I did a review of the first Pro Skater on my channel, and it's one of my favorite videos that I've ever made. It was such a happy project for me. I ranted and raved about the game, but as good as the first one was, and as good as the series would become with the third game onward, the second Tony Hawk's Pro Skater will always be my little happy place. When THPS 2 came out, a friend of mine let me borrow his copy for a few weeks. I played it for hours and hours and hours. I have the fondest memories of the soundtrack, but I also distinctly remember listening to my own CD mixes on a little stereo too. That stands for compact disc. Coal Chamber, Pink Floyd, Smashing Pumpkins, and Nine Inch Nails. Come Christmas of that year, I got my own copy of Hawk 2, as well as Dave Mirra Freestyle BMX. Now, I played about 5 billion hours of Dave Mirra's game, especially as it was Christmas break and I had just tanked up on Pro Skater 2. But a few months later, I popped Tony Hawk in on a random afternoon and oh my god, the addiction began all over again. But as many hundreds of hours as I put into THPS 2 back in the day, I didn't touch it again for another 20 years until recently. I was playing a bit of Duck Station and I had Tony Hawk 2 just sitting there. I thought, you know what, I'll do a few rounds for old time's sake. Guess what happened next? Go on, guess. Yeah, I played through the whole thing and fell in love all over again. As soon as I heard B-Boy Document 99, the nostalgia nearly doubled me over. I hadn't heard that song in nearly a quarter of a century, holy shit, but I immediately remembered the lyrics. And look, I know you might think, geez man, are you stuck in the past? And I get how you would think that, but A, if a video game is fun to play, it's fun to play. Time hasn't changed how good and addicting the old Tony Hawk formula is. You don't avoid John Coltrane records because they're old, do you? And B, let's say, hypothetically, you could talk with a deceased loved one in a dream for, let's say, an hour, just to hear their voice again. Wouldn't you? The most important FPS ever made. Look, I know, Duke, Halo, GoldenEye, Blood, Call of Duty, Doom, Fear, and on and on. There have been an immense number of wildly successful first-person games, including a recent flood of amazing boomer shooters like Dusk. And I love all of those games, I do, but none of them compare to the Big Daddy, Quake. One of the first truly three-dimensional FPS games with a groundbreaking multiplayer scene via Quake World and a modding scene that inspired who knows how many future game devs. Anyway, many books and articles have covered John Carmack's incredible programming and the turmoil boiling at id Software and John Romero's departure and all of that, but to sum it up, Quake is, in some way, responsible for your current favorite FPS. But okay, what does any of that have to do with depression? So glad I asked. There are 3 reasons why Quake brings light to my life. Number 1, like Half-Life, there's still an air of mystique about Quake to me. It seemed so cutting edge, and it was so advanced at a time when I was playing N64 and PS1 games. So anytime I go back to Quake nowadays, I still get a little bit of that magic. Reason number 2, the atmosphere is second to none. The imposing skybox, the incredible level design with all kinds of gothic architecture and the bizarre Lovecraftian industrial layouts, eldritch monsters with unique weaponry and a variety of abilities. It's like your childhood monster doodles come to life, and it's all carried by the soundtrack composed by Trent Reznor of Nine Inch Nails. Reason number 3, and this is the most important, Quake is fun to play. I know, what a concept for a video game, but really, Quake is my ultimate pick for when I just need like 20 minutes of feel-good activity. The gameplay is so smooth, so enjoyable, and so easy to pick up regardless of how long it's been. Saying that Quake is a masterpiece is like saying that the sun is rather warm, but regardless of its legendary status, Quake just plain makes me happy. Also, if you have a minute, visit my Patreon page. Early videos, exclusive videos, my music. Would you kindly check it out? Ooh, yay, we get to talk about BioShock. I played BioShock the day it came out. Specifically, I asked my neighbor to take me to GameStop to pick it up. Amanda B, wherever you are, I've never forgotten your kindness, love. That night, my brother came out to my apartment and we stayed up until 7 in the morning playing the game. We passed out, woke up whenever, and did it again. We beat BioShock in a 2-day blitzkrieg. You know, I asked him about that a few years ago, and he said he had no recollection, which sucks because I remember it so well. It's a special memory. Very few books, albums, movies, or video games have ever left an impression on me the way that BioShock did. I was completely engrossed in the world of Rapture, the city built on the ocean floor. I'm a massive sucker for anything Art Deco, and BioShock delivered above and beyond, filled to the brim with bold neon, luxurious, lavish furniture, shops, and industrial areas. Everything had already long since been in a state of decay upon your arrival, and that's a big part of the charm for me. In between battling splicers with a wonderful array of weapons and plasmids, I took the utmost joy in just wandering around the city, observing and soaking in the ruins of what must have been an incredible, thriving panacea in its heyday. A place for the best and brightest minds in society to come and flourish without constraint, and to see how that untethered prosperity quickly gave way to madness. Environmental storytelling means a great deal to me in video games, and very, very few titles do this as well as the first BioShock. And every time I go back to this game, I get to touch that magic rock one more time. If it's not my favorite video game ever, it's really, really damn close. Like with Silent Hill, any of the core Metal Gear Solid games could easily fill this spot. And, like Silent Hill, the jump from the first game on the PlayStation to the sequel on PS2 was night and day. I played the first Metal Gear Solid religiously. I used to beat the game almost once a week for the better part of 2 years. I took it like medicine. I won't bore you with the details because who cares, but I was 11 to 12 years old and going through a very dark time. Metal Gear Solid helped pull me through. So when I saw the sequel, Sons of Liberty, I nearly shit a brick. As in, a brick nearly exited my bottom. I desperately clinged to every article, every screenshot, everything. To a 12-year-old kid, it was the most important thing in life, but I didn't have a PlayStation 2, and neither of my parents were interested in grabbing one until December 26th, 2003. I'll never forget it. One last box to unwrap at Grandma's place. Sure enough, I took off the wrapping paper, and there was that gorgeous blue box emblazoned with those beautiful letters, PS2. There it was. Dad, if you ever see this, I've never forgotten that gesture. Thank you, man. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. I found a copy of Metal Gear Solid 2 at my local Blockbuster, the same one I found Half-Life at, as a matter of fact. I had a gift card, and guess what I took home that night? I was 14 years old on Christmas break, just me and nothing but time. I played Sons of Liberty for 12 hours straight. After 2 long years of waiting to play this thing, it was cathartic. And really, I only stopped because I fell asleep. Somehow, I didn't even know the big Raiden twist. It was amazing. I've played this game a few dozen times since then, and I've never stopped loving it. The tanker chapter is pure gaming nirvana. It's perfect. Although I do love the plant chapter, and I have a soft spot for Raiden, nothing will ever match playing as Solid Snake in his peak form. Nothing will ever come close. The insane story, the gorgeous visuals, the amazing music, the boss fights, I love it all, the whole game. But if I'm in a dark place, I just need to run that tanker chapter and I'm good. I could go on, but I'll save that for another day. I can't talk about this without spoiling the plot. If you haven't played What Remains of Edith Finch, please go get it. Wait for a sale, do anything, and then come back. Otherwise, skip to the next game. If you do know how this game plays out, you might be asking, how in the world does Edith Finch help lift depression? The entire game is Edith Finch discovering the story of each extended family member in her tree. More specifically, we as the player live out each family member's final moments. We play as a Finch in their dying minutes, or through the eyes of someone watching it happen. And at the very end, we see through the eyes of Edith's child being born into the world as Edith herself dies during childbirth. Now, at a glance, this wouldn't seem to be the game to help alleviate misery. A story about how quickly and foolishly life can be extinguished. Firstly, this game looks and sounds gorgeous. The visuals have a somewhat dreamlike quality, where things look like real life as you'd know it, but through the hazy lens of a sleepy mind. The Finch house, its history, and all of the madcap additions made over the decades is stunning. I played Edith Finch on a random afternoon. It looked neat, and I figured I'd spend an hour or so with it. And I ended up finishing the game in a single sitting. I could not stop. I had to see the next room in the house. I had to discover the next story. The variety of the environments, the bittersweet view into each family member's closing time, all carried along by an amazing soundtrack by Jeff Russo, with a special bonus track from John Carpenter himself. Yeah, that's right, that John Carpenter. You'd know the song. Outside of the phenomenal audio-visual spectacle, the story itself can be seen as quite uplifting despite the outcomes. Yeah, it's somber, but it also reminds me quite starkly that the moments we do get are precious. Above money, above material goods, careers, blah blah blah. The most important commodity is time itself. It's a reminder to not check out early. Time will find us regardless. And for now, we need to enjoy the rest of the ride. Also, be leery of fish canneries. Here's the thing about Bully. I made a big, detailed review of this game for the channel about a year ago. I kinda said all I could ever want to say in that review. But it had to be on this list because, like Super Mario 64, no matter how many times I come back to Bully, I will always catch myself smiling at several points. It seems like just about everyone has a Bully story from back when, as a great number of people have shared their favorite memories about the game. I suppose it's because it taps into a phase that we all went through in life. Maybe you were Jimmy Hopkins, a good-hearted kid from a broken home, acting out in search of love and a place to belong. Maybe you were like Petey, a timid, soft-spoken kid that befriended anyone that would put up with you, even if it meant a bit of torment on your end. Or maybe you were like Algernon and pissed your pants, you nerd. It's okay, I'm not judging you. Pea stain. The point is, in one way or another, it seems that we can all relate to bully in some way. Like Metal Gear Solid did when I was a child, this game got me through an especially difficult period in my teenage years. Again, I won't bore you, but just know that dipping into Old Bulworth Vale for a bike ride in a snowy downtown was the fucking remedy that I needed at that time, and I needed it badly. I could go on about the story, Sean Lee's amazing soundtrack, the comfort of the renderware engine, and so on, but long story short, Bully makes me happy. Simple as. Okay, one last game on this list, and it's crucial. Brace for hyperbole, but it's true. Of all the video games I've ever played in my life, and I've dedicated a great portion of my life to these things, no video game has ever given me the sense of wonderment that the first Mass Effect has. Many have come close, and perhaps I could make a part 2 of this list sometime, but to this day, anytime I step into the boots of Commander Shepard, I am completely swept up in the awe and majesty of every aspect of this masterpiece of digital art. The first time I got to try Mass Effect, it simply felt like the most ambitious video game I had ever played. Yeah, I know about Knights of the Old Republic, Daggerfall, and I'm sure that hardcore SimCity fans would scoff at that remark, but Mass Effect simply struck a different chord. The storytelling came off as highly polished and professional, helped greatly by the fact that the first voice you hear is Keith David as Captain Anderson. And that's just in the first few minutes. From there, you explore what seems like a vast galaxy of different planets with their own intricate environmental conditions, social hierarchy, laws, and alien races or multiple races, and their conflicts and cooperations therein. The dialogue options, specifically the opportunity to lean towards Paragon or Renegade, added an immediate replay value. I couldn't wait to play through the game again to see the other side of the coin. But that's barely scratching the tip of the iceberg. The footage you're watching is from the recent remastered edition, the Legendary Edition. But when this game came out, the graphics were absolutely incredible. Along with BioShock and Gears of War, Mass Effect was an extremely positive advertisement for the power of the Xbox 360. Yeah, the frame rate was slightly choppy, especially during heavy combat sections, but really, we didn't give a shit. I can look back now with my fancy computer and be snobbish and peculiar, but when we played this game in 2007-2008, the fact that the game looked as good as it did and ran as well as it did on a console was incredibly impressive. The alien designs were amazing, all distinctive and memorable without being overly wacky and cartoonish. Yes, even the Hanar seemed plausible somehow. The Turians, Krogan, the Elcor, Volus, Asari, the Solarians, even the Keepers just clacking away on the Citadel, all so well designed and fleshed out, which made playing the sequel an amazing pleasure as that game further explores each race and their homeworlds plus traditions. Again, I can't help but repeat that Mass Effect instills a sense of astonishment. There are those big kind of water cooler moments, like standing on the surface of the moon while staring back at Mother Earth herself, but even now, having recorded this footage recently, I was totally engrossed in simply just wandering around the Citadel, and this is one single area of the game. Looking up at the incredible skybox in the Presidium, bright and lively, dotted with lush greens from the foliage, walking through the seedy underbelly with the deep red, blue, and purple color grading, or trekking across the wards with a view of the immense flight traffic just outside the windows. Sometimes when I was in my late teens, I would simply just stand in the Citadel air traffic control room and just vibe. And the whole illusion is sold so well thanks to the prodigious soundtrack by Sam Hulick, Jack Wall, and Richard Jacques. This is, without a doubt, my favorite video game soundtrack ever composed. It perfectly captures and conveys that feeling of boundless exploration that awaits the player. I can remember when my younger brother showed me this game for the first time, as he had already long since played through it at the time of his visit. The opening song, Vigil, simply floored me. It made my mind wander with words like future, progress, discovery, hope, and yet it has a somewhat somber theme walking right through everything else. I would never dare spoil it, but the next time you hear this song in the game is when a character is explaining what the room you're standing in was for, and what all those little pods that you've been seeing across the walls of the city were used for, and that melancholic melody is swelling right beneath all of it. It's mesmerizing. Then you have the upbeat tempos of Vermeer Ride and the grandiose arrangements of Spectre Induction. It's all so good. And that's not to speak of the gameplay. To some fans, what keeps Mass Effect 1 elevated above the other two, and there are only 3 Mass Effect games in total, is the heavier emphasis on RPG elements. You can auto-level if you want, but I love the feeling of spending each and every point towards another ability, and that carrot of seeing a new ability coming to you soon will have you buzzing when you hear that incredible level-up stinger. True, the second and third game definitely improved the basic third-person shooting fundamentals and debatably streamlined the RPG mechanics for the better, but I'm a huge fan of the original system. Getting to level 60 wasn't achievable on a first run, and the feeling of going back for another run as a beefed-up Shepard was phenomenal. The Legendary Edition offers you the opportunity to cap things at level 30, which I think is a nice addition for those wanting to finish number 1 and get on to the second and third game with a fully leveled character a bit sooner. So, getting to the point, what does this have to do with depression? I have to go back to my day job tomorrow. I think about the toxic coworkers who, despite being the worst employees and people, keep being rewarded somehow. I think about the crushing feeling of never-ending nonsense, double talk, false promises, and plain old soul-draining day job bullshit waiting for me. That daily walk towards the office where I have to just kind of take time to contemplate life and its true value, and whether or not I'm actually living up to my full potential as not only a creative person, but as a man in general. But I tell you something, writing about Mass Effect, just writing about it, made me forget about the troubles for just a brief moment. Now, imagine the therapeutic benefit when I spend an hour or two playing it. Yeah, it's like that.
Fuck this.